First question. All three types of constraints can be manipulated day to day. True or false? All three types of constraints, if you think about our triangle, can be manipulated day to day. True or false?
Wait, do you mean like every day or like some days not?
On a day.
One day.
Okay.
Question 2. Modifying equipment or space to be proportional to an individual's structural constraints is called what? Modifying the equipment or the space to be proportional to an individual's structural constraints is called what? Okay, make sure your name's on the paper. 4. Ready? Put the phone away, sir. Alright. All three types of constraints can be manipulated day to day. False. False. Right? I can't make someone stronger in one day. Alright, modifying the equipment or the space is called body scaling. Alright, so 1 point each, total out of 2 for me.
How you not make sure?
So smart.
On the blackboard, right? There's an article by Linda Gagan and Nancy Getchell. Nancy Getchell is also one of the authors on your textbook, right? And so there's a practitioner article up there that uses the information from today's chapter to help you understand that info. Remember, don't worry about the new shape of model. We decided earlier in the semester we're not going to look at that new model. So stick with your triangle. Okay, so make sure that you read that article. That will help you out a lot. Okay, so last chapter. In the last chapter, they kind of pull everything together for you. How do I use this information in an applied setting? Okay, not everybody wants to be a lead, and that's tricky for you guys because you're so good at what you do. It's difficult to remember what it was like not to be very good at moving, and sometimes it's difficult mentally to understand someone else's mindset who's saying, no, I don't want to compete, I just want to be in shape, right? So that's something that you have to be a little careful with because you're a pretty competitive bunch, all right? Remember that movement occurs within a context. So if I change the context, I'm likely to see a slightly different motor pattern occurring. So those interacting constraints might be more influential at certain times than others. So when would my height and changing in my height be very influential? If I'm teaching what
Like
population?
Little kids.
When, okay, a little bit, they don't grow very fast. When do we grow very fast?
Teenager?
All right, so when we hit puberty, right? So if you're going to work with kids who are or maybe going through puberty, then you're going to see height become a really important constraint in some of the behaviors you see. If you work with adults, height is fixed, right? So it's not going to be the thing that is causing the change in the pattern that I'm looking at. Okay. And remember that motor skills can change over the lifestyle. So if I can manipulate different constraints, that can be useful in influencing the amount or the type of motor development that's going on for someone, right? Can I help them out? Can I manipulate the environment? Or can I manipulate the equipment that I'm giving them? Or can I change the rules of the game that we're playing so that everybody can engage, not just the people who are very good at the game? So, one of the nice things about working with constraints theory is that you don't always, if you're working with children, you don't always have to explain to them what's going on. You can just change something and that will alter their motor pattern without them really even comprehending that you were manipulating them, which can be good, right? Because we don't always like to be told what to do. Okay? And so we have a really useful tool in this chapter to try to help you out with how do I use this, how do I manipulate things. Okay. So the first idea, we've got to structure our environment if we're the teacher. All right, so if I'm the coach, if I'm a PE teacher, if I'm a personal trainer, I get to choose and structure the environment somewhat. So what if I'm a PE teacher or I'm a coach where I'm in the same room every time and maybe I don't have the opportunity or the permission or the funds to paint the wall, right? But I know that there's research out there that says if they're trying to learn to catch, then watching the ball as distinctly as possible helps them learn to catch. So I want to make the objects stand out from the background as much as I can. Right? What could I do in my gym? Right? How could I make the walls a different color? And I'm not allowed to paint. Put up big sheets of paper. Good, Nathan. So maybe I could pin up big sheets of paper on one wall to make that wall paler so that the kids can see the ball more distinctly. Right? I can go outside and maybe we have a big grassy area so we can play on grass. That's going to feel very different than if we go outside and play on a tarmac surface. Okay? I need to think about that gender idea that we talked about. Can I pick activities that are gender neutral?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Right? Sometimes I can. Right? I don't have to always play games or choose activities for my lesson plans that are only male or female. Okay? Can I pick something that's more neutral so that everybody feels comfortable joining in? Or can I set up something that might historically be gender biased in a way that makes it more neutral so that the other gender is comfortable? I need to think about all these things if I'm going to be a good teacher. If I'm the teacher, I get to design the task. Right? You guys don't get to pick the textbook, I get to pick the textbook. But if I'm the teacher in movement, I get to set the gym up, design the task, give you the reason or the thing that you're going to do, the activity for the day or the several activities for the day. So think about throwing for force or throwing for accuracy. What change will that give you in the pattern that you're looking at? What do you want for that day? So I can choose the goal of the activity, right? I can make things more developmentally appropriate by body scaling the equipment. So how can I find things that are smaller or lighter, right? So when I get some funding and I'm buying new equipment for the equipment cupboard, for my PE room, or for my athletes, can I mix it up a little bit so I've got a bigger range of equipment available? Okay. So let's see. What's going to happen if I have only big balls, right? Like playground size balls, but I want to teach throwing.
You could just work on the footstep.
You could work on the footstep. What am I going to get with my arm action? I can get the step going. Am I going to get a one-handed overarm? No. Right? I'm going to get a two-handed under toss or a chest pass. So I've got to think about what is it that I want to work on that day and pick the right equipment to create the movement pattern that I want them to do. If I want one-handed overhand throwing, I would have to provide things that are small enough for them to pick up and throw in one hand. Right? Seems very simple, but we don't always pay attention to the details. And the details are important if I'm going to get the movement pattern I wanted. So, if I do a task analysis, traditionally, then I compare what I'm looking at with some ideal picture in my head, right? And I say, no, that's not right, or yes, that is right, or I want you to do this. And we use what we call an error model. Okay. If I want to use a constraints-based approach, though, I can do something that's a little more developmentally appropriate, perhaps, because an error model, most people are going to not succeed at, right? Because the picture in my head is the ideal, and most of us can't get there. So I've got a whole heap of people who are not succeeding in moving, which is not a good motivational tool, right? So if I use a constraints-based approach, then I've got something that I can make developmentally appropriate. So they give you some hints in this chapter how to put together a really useful task analysis. I'm not a PE teacher. I didn't train to be a PE teacher. If you're going to be a PE teacher, I think that this is a very good tool. And if you're not a PE teacher, you could probably utilize a more complex version of this. So instead of using the simple version within the analysis, you can use the complex version. Right? So the way this works is the first thing you've got to do is pick a task or a skill. Right? So we're going to do kicking. Right? And step 2 is what are the individual constraints that might impact kicking? Right? So if you think about kicking,
Your first step.
what do I have to be able to do?
Balance.
Balance, right? I've got to be able to balance. What does balance take?
Strength.
Strength. right? So I need strength for two reasons. I need the strength to stand on one leg, but I also need strength to swing hard and apply force to the ball if I'm going to kick the ball any kind of distance, right?
Flexibility too.
Flexibility.
Center of gravity.
You can't.
That's cool.
I would put center of gravity in with balance.
He doesn't know he's inside else.
What about coordination?
Yes, because you have to watch the ball and you gotta know the foot coming, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so you've got eye-foot coordination, right?
Yeah.
So, and you can come up with, you're the teacher, you can come up with any relevant individual constraints that you want to think about within a skill. Okay. Then the next part of the attack is picking some environmental and task constraints that I want to manipulate in respect to kicking. So I want to pick environmental or task constraints that would help me deal with some of these problems. Let's improve some of the ideas that we've picked out as important. All right? So, if I want to work on balance and coordination, particularly if I'm thinking about coordination, right? What is the simplest version of me kicking a ball? Standing, right? So if I think about movement of the ball, that's my task constraint. I can also have movement of the person. Would be another task constraint. Okay. Then we're going to come up with a continuum from simple to complex. All right, so standing still is the simplest version. Right? What would be the most complex version? Running slow?
Fast.
Running fast. Okay. What's the simplest version of movement of the ball?
Staying still.
Stationary, right? Good. Now, the most complex, according to the literature, forwards backwards is harder than side to side. Right? Always seems a little odd to me, but according to the literature. Okay? So the most complex would be the ball moving
I'd say towards
from back fast.
Would it be like in the air as well?
Oh yeah, that would be a good one.
Shit, man. Alright, that's dope.
Right? Left to right or right to left. Okay? So you get to come up with your continuum. So you could have maybe 3 or 4, right? So from standing, we're going to get them to walk. And from walking, we're going to get them to run slow.
Or jog.
Jog, right? So for each factor, we come up with a list, simple to complex for that factor. Does that make sense? So we might have stationary, we might have rolling. Let's take direction out of it for now because that confuses complex the issue a little bit. So we've got stationary, we've got rolling, we've got, I don't know what to call it, soccer guys don't laugh at me, fast, and we've got coming through the air, right? Okay. What about an environmental constraint that would make a difference to kicking?
When?
Right?
Grass, slippery
Grass.
pavement.
Pavement, all right, so the surface would make a difference.
Would it be like the size of the, no,
That's tough.
Right. So now surface is interesting because I think it depends upon your point of view about kicking. Right? You might say it's easier to kick on a gym floor, right? And it's harder to kick in the sand. And then you've got anything in between, right? So we've got maybe concrete and grass, turf. Does that make sense? Kicking though is interesting because what if your gym floor is really, really shiny? And what you're working on is that. Right? Then I might be scared of slipping on the gym floor, where I'm not scared of slipping on the sand. So I don't know much about kicking because I don't do that skill, right? I would say that it would be valid for you as the teacher to decide to reverse these if you wanted to, right? What do the soccer players think? What's easiest and what's hardest?
I think concrete harder than the gym floor.
Okay, so that's heading in the right direction. You like this direction.
Depends on the type of grass as well. Like our game field's not very good. It's got bobbles and all that on it.
So long grass is harder than short grass, right? So does that give you the idea? You can, this is up to you, right? This is not something you hand in. It's not something you do anything with. It's a tool that you create to help you set up developmentally appropriate practice for kicking. Right? And you can have as many factors here as you want. I would say probably don't do more than 5 on your continuum because it'll start to get a bit too complicated to deal with, and what you want when you're a busy teacher is something that's easy, that makes your life simple. Right? So we've got a practical range from simple to complex, things I get to manipulate because I'm the teacher. Right? Remember that a small change in the constraint can result in a very big change in the motor pattern that I see. Right? So if I'm not getting what I want, I might only need to tweak something a little bit in order to get the pattern that I want to see, to help that brain learn that movement properly. So, we get that far, and now comes the fun bit, right? I put the work in, and now what am I going to do with it? All right, so you've got a couple of options. Now you've created the matrix. How I use it, I've got some options. So, let's say it's the first week of the first year in school, and we're going to introduce kicking. Right? So we want to introduce a very simple version of kicking because we've got no idea what the kids in the class can do. All right? Or if I'm going to do personal training with someone, the first time I have them in the gym after I've done their pre-test, right, their assessment, I know what they're capable of? Do I set them up the most complex training program I can? Or do I set them up something relatively simple initially so that they're not too sore? Or they can learn the movements that I want them to do? Right? So I get to do a very simple version of kicking. Okay. And this is my very complicated version of kicking. And across the course of the semester, I get to choose, right? They do the standing with a stationary ball on the gym floor quite well the first week. So the second week, I'm going to introduce another option. I'm not going to take that option away necessarily, because probably not everybody in the class is doing well. But maybe I'll add another option. Right? So now they can do that. And then perhaps on week 3, I'll introduce that. Okay. So now you've got an entire set of lesson plans for that skill just on one matrix. I can increase the complexity for different components and create a whole new lesson plan. When you're teaching, lesson plans are a pain in the behind. When you're coaching, training plans are a pain in the behind. Right? It would be so nice just to walk into the gym and say, okay, what will we do today then? Right? Yeah, that's not how that works. Never, ever, ever. It's got to be structured. You've got to have a plan. You always need a plan B and a plan C in case something happens for plan A. Right? You get to your gym and there's water leaking through the ceiling.
I'm working on the water.
We're working on the water. Right? What are we going to do? I can't cancel PE. That's not the answer. What are we going to do for plan B? All right, so you can create developmentally appropriate lesson plans using the matrix. So creating the matrix takes a little bit of time because you want to create one of these for any skills you want to teach that semester or that month or that season if you're a coach. Can I create a matrix for everything I want to do? Because then once I've got the matrix, creating developmentally appropriate progressions becomes easy. Right? If I'm the teacher, I don't go from this and then the next time they come in the gym tell them to do that. That would be daft. Right? Not developmentally appropriate to jump from the most simple to the most complex of anything. Got to have progressions in between. The other way you can use this, which I think could be useful, is that you can standardize your assessment. So I can have a blank sheet for each child at the beginning of the semester, or for each athlete at the beginning of the season, right? However you're going to use it. And I can get them to do the skill for me. So I've got to decide which version of the skill I'm going to set up. But I can watch them and I can say, okay, little Audrey did pretty well with the ball moving quite fast. If she was running slowly and if we were in the gym. So by the end of the semester, when I test her again, have we managed to teach her how to kick the ball out of the air while she's running fast on the grass? So now I've got a pre-test and a post-assessment, and I can see where she improved on each factor. Which is pretty cool. Assessments are always used. You can never have too many different types of assessment because they push and push and push to make you test everybody, right? That's why we have to have exams. Who the heck wants exams? Right? Not me. We don't have exams because I want the exam. We have the exam because I have to be able to indicate to the authorities that you reached a standard that was acceptable for the content. The only way I can do that is to run a test. Right? So we don't run tests and things because we want to, we run it because we have to. You have to justify your PE program, maybe. They want to take funding away from you, or they want to say, oh, you only need PE once a week. You don't need PE every day. Who needs PE every day? So you've got to be able to justify why you need PE every day, because you've got to be able to show the improvement that the children make across the course of the semester or the year. Right? What if you're a head coach and they say, well, we're going to cut that sport, or we're going to cut your position and pay someone part-time? Right? How are you going to justify that you're worth the money? Right? I've got to show big improvement pre-post so that they keep paying me. We don't do a very good job of that in school. If I was going to do a better job of that, I would have to give you a big test on day one and see how well you do, and compare it to a big test at the end of the semester and see the improvement. Right? Does that make sense? I think that's a really useful tool to help you guys out. Right? I can structure lesson plans way more easily. It's just going to do itself once the matrix is made. And I can standardize assessment. I can pick a profile, and then I can see how the children match up to the profile and see what I need to improve on.
Sounds like just building like a workout program. Like it lists all the percentages of like the person, or just percentages, but each person has their own percentage. So when you just input the number, it changes, and then the goal for them changes as well. That's just what this is.
Similar. Yeah.
Put it, from my mind, that's all.
Right? You would not pick a goal, right? What's the goal? So this column for you might be
Like squat.
intensity or squat, yeah. Or your intensity may be your factor down here, and this may be the skill. Right? How are you going to make
Like if someone can't squat to
appropriate progressions? Okay? All right, so just really try to think as a teacher, as a coach, as a trainer. You're all teachers. We use different terms depending what it is we're teaching. But if you are in charge of a group of people getting better at doing something, you are a teacher. Okay? And if we're a teacher, then our task is to use every piece of knowledge we can get our hands on to help that person get better at the skill set we're trying to give them. Whether it's maths, whether it's football, whether it's frisbee, whether it's walking, right? What do I know that I can use to help that person get better? Because that's my job, I'm a teacher. Right? If I want to foster optimal motor development in the people I come into contact with, how do I do that? What do I know that can increase their motor repertoire Right? The more I can do, the more options I've got to keep moving as I get older. So how can I use what I know to increase someone's motor repertoire and increase their skill level so they enjoy the moving? Easy, right? Easy. Okay. All right. So that is chapter 18, which means we're one lesson ahead, which means we can bump everything down and we can have our exam while I'm still here, which would be a good thing. All right, so please pay attention. That means that on Wednesday, if I remember rightly, we're going to do a developmental model for physical activity and obesity. Let me have a look. Yes. All right, so everything's going to move down, which means that your final exam, your exam will be on the 6th of May, not the 11th of May, which is good because I can't be here on the 11th of May. You guys were going to have to do it on your own. So I prefer the 6th of May, that's good, because then I'm here and you can ask me questions and it'll be better. The 6th is a Friday, yes.